I was recognized as a member of the Shen family and engaged to you. My best friend rushed out and said that she was the real daughter of the Shen family. I, who had been reborn for a new life, immediately packed my things and ran away. It's so ridiculous. You is actually a psychopathic killer. In my previous life, I was tortured by him for 3 years using all kinds of means, and then thrown into a basement full of skeletons. In this life, I watched as Zhao affectionately took Yu's arm and was so grateful that tears streamed down my face. Good sister. Thank you for saving my life. I almost cried when I was reborn at the engagement banquet with you. Damn it. I finally died. But I was reborn again. And what's more, I was reborn at such a time. The man holding my hand was refined, gentle, and as elegant as jade. Who would have thought that he was a pervert who would do anything in private? I was tortured by him for 3 years, having my eyes gouged out and my flesh cut off. It just so happened that I had a low pain tolerance and never died from the pain, which made this guy more and more interested in me. Thinking of those dark days, I couldn't help but shiver. You noticed my uneasiness and looked over with his clear eyes. What's wrong? Jin? Are you not feeling well? I shook my head and tremblingly pulled my hand back. No. It's nothing. I just have a stomachache. I need to go to the toilet. I wanted to run away. But you grabbed my hand. He had a gentle smile. But his tone was indisputable. Wait a while. Jin. All the guests are here. Go after we finish the ceremony. I looked at my parents who had recognized me, hoping they could notice my uneasiness. But they just smiled at me, and you, looking very satisfied. I withdrew my gaze and looked at you. Seeing that he was staring at me, the corners of his lips slightly curved, and a hint of interest flashed in his eyes. This familiar feeling. He always had this expression before torturing me. Woo woo woo. I rolled my eyes and wanted to faint. You quickly put his arm around my shoulder. My heart let out a groundhog scream. Help. I don't know if God had mercy and received my sincere plea. The next second, my best friend Yao rushed out and slapped a paternity test report on my face. Jin, you let out a low sigh. You bitch who stole someone else's place. I'm the real daughter of the Shen family. In the previous life, she also made such a scene that I exposed her mercilessly. This time, she slapped me again. The whole hall fell silent. I tugged at the corners of my lips and spoke in Yao's eyes that were trying to stay calm. Good for you. A person like me who is greedy for wealth and status deserves to be slapped hard by you. Miss. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have stolen your hair to forge a paternity test. I was wrong. Yao opened her mouth. Her pupils dilated in shock. I quickly stepped back from Yu's arms, pulled Yao's hand, and placed it in Yu's palm. I'll step aside now. I wish you, young master and miss, a happy marriage and an early birth of a precious child. After saying that, before anyone could react, I took off my dress. Like a loach slipping into the sea, I quickly escaped from the venue. That was close. Fortunately, having fulfilled Li, I chose a simple dress. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to take it off. There was a commotion in the venue. And finally, it was Yu's voice. Continue. Hearing his voice, I shuddered again. Someone approached from behind and asked in confusion, Sister? Why are you outside? Hasn't the engagement banquet started yet? I turned around and found it was my younger brother from my adoptive parents' side who was late. It seemed that he thought of something, and his casual expression changed. Anger welled up in him. Did they bully you? They made you greet people outside during the engagement. I grabbed his mouth. Shut up. Hurry up and run away with me. Sister. My younger brother still had an angry expression. I didn't have time to explain more. I told him to pack his things, and then go to the nursing home to pick up our adoptive parents. He opened his mouth to ask again. And I grabbed his mouth once more. Don't ask. Just run away first. I'll explain to you in the car. Our adoptive parents were still in a daze when they were suddenly picked up. My adoptive father asked worriedly, Jin, aren't you having your engagement today? Rao pursed his lips and drove without saying a word. Seeing that we had driven out of the urban area of City A, I let out a long sigh of relief. Mom and Dad, do you trust me? The matter of being reborn is too absurd to talk about. Moreover, you has really set up a good persona. Among the people in City A who know him, everyone speaks highly of him when his name is mentioned. My adoptive parents are both 80 years old. If I rashly say that you is a psychopathic killer, I might scare them. My adoptive parents looked at each other. We trust you, Jin. We trust you. If you've been wronged, you must tell us. Mom and Dad. Although Mom and Dad don't have much money, it's no problem to support you and your younger brother. Looking at their aged faces, my heart ached, forcing back the sadness in my heart. I spoke seriously and pleaded, Mom and Dad, let's go back to our hometown and live there for a few months. I'll explain to you after things have settled down. The Yu family has a large family business. And you, the only son of the Yu family, has great power in City A. I didn't dare to tell my adoptive parents until I was absolutely sure of our safety. Moreover, I also wanted to save people. Calculating the time, there should already be more than 10 women locked in Yu's basement. In the previous life, several of them had helped me. But in the end, they were all tortured to death by you. Because I was not sensitive to pain, I lived the longest and watched them die one by one in front of me. Hatred and fear intertwined in my heart, and I clenched my fists. Rao glanced at me through the rearview mirror. His slender hand rested on the steering wheel, and his eyes showed an unreadable expression. The car was silent. After a while, he said, Sister, remember to tell me if you need to do anything. We didn't get back to our hometown until 8 o'clock in the evening. It was too late. I roughly cleaned the room, took a shower, and was about to go to bed. Rao pushed the door open and came in. His usual carefree and leisurely expression was gone, replaced by seriousness and gravity. What on earth is going on? I didn't plan to involve him, so I casually replied, nothing. I just don't like those people and don't want to stay with them. Rao sneered, this kind of excuse might work on our adoptive parents. But do you think you can deceive me? After saying that, he put away his smile and stared at me. Only then did I realize that the little brat who had always followed me calling me sister had already grown up. Now, standing in front of me, he was even taller than me by a head. His back was broad, with broad shoulders and a narrow waist. At this moment, he looked down at me, a hint of worry showing in his eyes. And his voice was low. I won't force you if you really don't want to say it, but don't act on your own. I nodded randomly and turned to go to the living room to pour some hot water. As soon as I left the room, I heard a knock on the door. I looked back at Rao. Rao blocked me behind him, took 2 quick steps, and reached the door. The knocking continued, accompanied by a man's clear and gentle voice. Jin, Ling, are you in? It's you. As soon as the words fell, my face turned pale instantly. How could this be? We didn't stop at all along the way. Only my adoptive parents. Rao, heading till Stelbrand Session. And I knew the address of our hometown. Wasn't you busy getting engaged to Yao? How could he come so quickly? Could it be that he had been monitoring me? While I was in a daze, Yu's voice came from outside the door again. You left something behind. I brought it to you. I trembled and pulled Rao aside, signaling him not to make a sound. The sound of the man leaving came from outside the door. Soon, Madame sorry. The corridor became quiet again. I took 2 steps forward and wanted to open the peephole. Thinking of something, my hand paused, and I trembled as I pulled it back. I took a deep breath and slowly lay down on the ground, trying to see the situation in the corridor through the crack of the door. It was pitch black outside the door, and I let out a sigh of relief. Just as I was about to withdraw my gaze, I suddenly met a pair of dark eyes. Yu was lying on the ground, not caring at all about his usual image as a handsome young man. He curled his lips into a smile, and his voice was still refined and gentle. In the howling cold wind outside the window, he whispered like a devil, Jin, Ming, I saw you. Rao pulled me up and opened the door. There was only Yu outside the door. He slowly got up from the ground, his back straight, still looking like a noble young master. It was as if everything just now had been my illusion, and nothing had happened. Yu took out an invitation card from his pocket and handed it to me. Yao said that she has had a relationship with you for more than 10 years and that this matter shouldn't make you too distant. She asked me to bring you the wedding invitation card. Rao frowned. No need. City A is too far away. Our adoptive parents are not in good health and can't be left alone. Yu's gaze finally shifted from me and stared at him. Aren't you a person? You stay here and let Jin go. After saying that, his gaze turned to me again. Fortunately, I wasn't facing him alone. With Rao by my side, I was much calmer. I took the invitation card and thanked him politely. Next time, it would be fine for Yao to send me a message for such things. Mister, you doesn't need to make a special trip. You smiled. That's not the same. Jin, let out a low sigh. You are different to me after all. You left after delivering the invitation card. It seemed that chasing us all day and coming to our door late at night was really just to deliver an invitation card. After closing the door, Rao and I looked at each other. Rao pulled me into his room. I couldn't tell Rao that I was reborn. So I just said, I discovered his secret in Yu's house. I slightly modified my memories of the previous life and explained it to Rao. After listening, Rao was silent for a long time and then asked, do you really have to go to save people? Let's move further away from you and find a place where he can't find us. I knew he was worried about me. But I gave a bitter smile. I'm afraid it won't work. He should already be keeping an eye on me. I reached out and touched Rao's head. Rao, when I go to the wedding banquet, you take our adopted parents and leave. Find a safe place and settle them down first. A trace of struggle flashed in the young man's eyes. And finally he said, I'll go with you. Don't even think about leaving me behind. The marriage alliance between the Shen family and the Yu family naturally featured a grand display. I went in with the invitation and found a deserted corner to stay in. Yu's villa was very large, with 4 floors above and below, covering an area of more than 500 square meters. Today's guests were mainly on the 2nd and 3rd floors. I had to think of a reasonable way to explore the basement and also find the keys. While I was in a daze, someone put their arm around my shoulder. I looked up and met Yao's smiling face. Jin, why are you sitting here alone? Come upstairs with me and take a look at my bridal chamber. Behind her was Yu. And the two of them looked very affectionate. I was just worried that I couldn't find an excuse. And now the opportunity had come. There were only a few guests on the 4th floor. After walking on the red carpet that covered the floor, Yao led me to the bedroom at the very end of the 4th floor. The door was open, and the bridesmaids were inside adding decorations and tidying up things. Now that Yao had gained power, she couldn't wait to show off all the good things to me. This is the room that you specially prepared for me. In the future, I don't have to go out to work. I can just stay at home and help him sort out some documents. I looked at the familiar surroundings and sighed inwardly. Yao didn't know that this beautifully and elegantly decorated room had once been the burial place of many people. Perhaps one day in the future, it would also make her suffer so much that she would rather be dead than alive. My goal wasn't here, but next door Yu's study. Yu's basement had 3 doors, and all of them had excellent sound insulation. This was also the reason why he could hold a wedding banquet in his home so openly. I had to find these 3 keys to open the door of the basement and rescue the people inside. Yu had tortured me in the study before, and I clearly remembered that he had taken out 2 keys from the safe. I pretended to be jealous and taunted Yao, it's just a room. There are so many rules in wealthy families. I'm afraid that besides this room, you can't even set foot in other places. Right? Yao's proud expression froze for a moment. One of the bridesmaids looked over. She was Yao's close friend. Some people are just sour grapes. Our Yao is marrying into the Yu family, and will be the mistress of the Yu family in the future. Not to mention this villa. Even the old Yu family residence. Yao can go in and out freely. Yu was greeting the guests outside. After a while, he went downstairs with the guests. On the 4th floor, only I, Yao, and a few bridesmaids were left. I knew that the opportunity had come. Mister, Yu dotes on you so much? Is it true that it was rumored online that Mr. Yu bought a piece of land in the western suburbs and wants to give it to you as a wedding gift? A trace of uneasiness flashed across Yao's face. Obviously, she didn't know about this matter. Of course it's true. Yu is the most generous to me. As soon as the bridesmaids heard this, they immediately gathered around. Really? Yao? That's a piece of land. I heard that a piece of land in the western suburbs is worth tens of millions. Mister, you just gave it away like that? Yao said modestly. It's just tens of millions. To make me smile. Yu is willing to do it. I looked at her suspiciously. Where's the evidence? Where's the land authorization document? Let me see. Yao's face froze. Yu hasn't given it to me yet. Maybe he wants to give me a surprise tonight. I elongated my tone. Oh, so you don't have it yet? Yao became angry from embarrassment. What do you mean I don't have it? I'll go and get it from you right now and show it to you. The bridesmaid said, Mister. You just went downstairs. He seems to be busy with business. Isn't it not a good idea to look for him at this time? Yao, however. Do you know where Mr. Yu's study is? Documents are usually kept in the study. Let's go and take a look ourselves. That's a land authorization document worth tens of millions. I really want to see what it looks like. Yao was carried away by the flattery and immediately waved her hand. Follow me to Yu's study. Let's look for it. After entering the study, the division of labor was clear. They were looking for the land authorization document, while I took the opportunity to approach Yu's safe. Yu, because of his perverted behavior, didn't install surveillance cameras at home for fear of being discovered by others. This habit now made it convenient for me. I just needed to avoid Yao and the others. And I didn't need to worry about anything else. The password of the safe was the date when you violated the first girl. He had a perverted obsession with this date. In the past 3 years, whenever this date came, his torture of me would double. Therefore, I remembered it very clearly. I successfully opened the safe and felt a burst of joy in my heart. I reached in to feel around, but my hand touched nothing. I took a closer look and found that there was nothing inside. A chill ran down my back. In the next instant, a man's gentle voice sounded behind me. Are you looking for this? I completely froze. I turned around and found that Yu was separated from me by a bookshelf, holding a document in his hand. From his angle, he could only see that I was looking for something. I calmly closed the safe, and cold sweat was dripping down my back. I shouted, Yao. Mister. Yu has found it. The people who were still busy walked over quickly. Yao had a shy expression. Yu. Why are you here? She reached out to take the document from Yu's hand, but Yu dodged. How did you know that I bought a piece of land? He asked Yao this question, but his gaze was still fixed on me. Yao glared at me and then went to pull Yu's arm. How else could I know? Of course. My parents told me. My heart skipped a beat. You bought the land actually for a secret project of the Yu Corporation. The confidentiality measures were very good, and no one in the noble circles of City A knew about it. Yu withdrew his gaze and stared at Yao meaningfully. Is that so? Yao felt a little uneasy under his gaze. Yes, yes. My parents said yesterday. Yu's eyes became darker and darker. Unable to bear it, Yao finally said, Come on. It was said online. I was afraid that you would think I was just speculating. So I said it was my parents who told me. Yu's expression changed, and he took out his phone to look at it. The second item on the hot search, the Yu Corporation spends a fortune to make a beauty smile. I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Although Rao said that he would take care of this matter. After all, he hadn't graduated from the computer science department of Haida University yet. How could I not be worried? Yu's face looked a bit unpleasant. Yao shook his arm and acted cockathiously. I know you wanted to give me a surprise and didn't want others to know about it, but it doesn't matter. As long as you put your heart into it, I will be very happy. Thank you for the wedding gift. I like it very much. Because Yu's matter of buying the land was exposed, various families wanted to get a share of the pie. Even though he was capable, he couldn't manage everything in a short period of time. I showed great envy towards Yao and begged her to let me stay in the Yu residence for a few days. My father was very suspicious and asked Yao to do a paternity test again. So Yao reluctantly let me stay. You didn't put the keys in the safe. And I lost my direction for a while. You came back once every night. Stayed for a while. And then left in a hurry. Sometimes he would be intimate with Yao. I followed Yao and gradually found that you would disappear for a while every night. I guessed that this was the time when he went to deliver food to the people in the basement. On this day, having fulfilled the session, you still stayed with Yao for a while. After coming out of the study, he went straight to the basement. I followed behind him and found that he didn't stop on the way. This meant that either he carried the keys with him or the keys were somewhere else in the study. I tried to get some information from Yao several times but didn't get anything useful. Instead, it made her look suspicious. You haven't given up yet, have you? I let you stay temporarily because I felt sorry for you and wanted you to experience the life of the wealthy. Don't be so stupid as to try to seduce you. You won't take a fancy to you. I rolled my eyes in my heart. I wouldn't want someone like you even if he were given to me. Only Yao would treat a viper as a treasure. When he had some free time in a few days. If he didn't torture Yao to death, I would change my name. The maid brought a bunch of flowers, which were very delicate and beautiful. Suddenly, I had an idea and remembered the back garden. In my previous life, that was the burial place of those girls. While you was out, I avoided the maids, took out the small shovel I carried with me, and started digging. After digging for about half an hour, finally, having to felled my under the root of a tree, I found a small box. I opened it and saw 4 keys. 2 pairs of identical ones. I took out the keys, put the box back, and filled and compacted the dugout pit. A light drizzle began to fall in the sky, gradually wetting the ground and helping me cover up the last trace. After entering the house, Yao came over with a nervous expression. Father called and said that we're going to do a paternity test this afternoon. You come with me. I obediently agreed, okay. Yao heaved a sigh of relief, and then said arrogantly, it's not that I'm begging you to go. I just want you to see it with your own eyes, so that you can give up your delusion of being a wealthy young lady. During the afternoon nap, Yao drew a tube of my blood and tiptoed out of the room. She came back full of confidence at around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. As soon as she came back, she pulled me up, let's go. It's time to leave. I looked at her proud expression, raised my arm, and said with a hint of doubt, my arm hurts a bit. It feels like the pain when I was taken to have my blood drawn last time. As I said this, I wanted to lift up my sleeve to take a look. Yao's face froze, and she stopped me. You probably just pressed it numb while sleeping. Don't look at it. Let's go quickly. The driver has been waiting for a long time. I curled the corners of my lips and let her pull me into the car. I had to go out and contact Ro. I hadn't seen him for a few days, and I didn't know how his arrangements were going. Because I was distracted, I almost missed my step when getting into the car. A man's arm supported me from behind, and with a heave, he lifted me up. I turned around and saw you smiling eyes, Jin, whining. Be careful. Yao kept talking all the way. She gently told you about the things she had done in the past few days, and then acted cockathiously. I have to have my blood drawn again later. It will hurt so much. You soothed her softly. I sat in the corner without saying a word. Occasionally, I could feel Yu's gaze on me. In the second half of the journey, Yao fell asleep, and the car became completely quiet. Yu's gaze fell on me even more recklessly, making it hard to breathe. I simply closed my eyes and pretended to be asleep. The moment I closed my eyes, I heard the man chuckle. It was like a mixture of doting and mockery. Waiting in the hospital were my biological parents by blood. In my previous life, after suffering persecution from you, I once tried to seek help from them, but you fought them off with a highly profitable project. From then on, as long as I was still alive and hadn't died, they simply pretended not to know what you had done. Such parents are not worth recognizing. I thought about calling the police, but without conclusive evidence, the police couldn't force their way into the house for a search. You've had great power and influence in City A. If I wasn't careful, I would end up losing everything. I closed my eyes, took a breath of the slightly cool air, and followed Yao into the hospital. With my blood, there was naturally no problem with the paternity test. I looked at the scene of their family of 3 hugging each other and crying with joy, and I just felt disgusted, taking advantage of no one paying attention to me. I walked out of the ward and met Rao, who was waiting for me at the corner. after not seeing him for a few days. He looked a bit haggard. There were dark circles under his eyes. And some stubble had grown on his face. When Rao saw me, he extinguished the cigarette in his hand. He called out in a hoarse voice, "Sister." I patted him on the shoulder. "You little rascal. You've even learned to smoke." The next second, I was forcefully pulled into his arms. The strength was so great that it seemed he wanted to crush me. The young man was like a wronged big dog, and his voice carried a tone of accusation. "I didn't want to smoke, but I was really worried about you." People around us cast curious glances at us. I hugged Drow back and pinched the soft flesh around his waist. "Okay. Let me go quickly." Rao released me and let out a sigh. "You is really cunning." I haven't found any evidence of his crimes. Originally, our plan was to carry out the investigation together and see which side would succeed first. Since Rao didn't find the evidence, it was up to me. Fortunately, heading fulfilledly, I had already obtained 2 keys. "Rao, I have to go back to confirm and make sure to succeed with one strike. You keep an eye on my messages these days. Once I confirm, call the police immediately and bring them here." The project in the west of the city was approaching completion. "But you didn't come back tonight." This was a bit unusual. And I didn't dare to act rashly. Yao insisted on sleeping with me, saying that she wanted to chat with me and reminisce about the dormitory days in university. We talked until the early morning. And then she finally revealed her true purpose. Yao took out a shirt from her bag. I took a look and recognized it as Yu's. Half a palm-sized bloodstain was on the hem of the shirt. Yao looked at the bloodstain under the light. He told the servant to throw it away. And I heard it. I secretly asked the servant for it. She gritted her teeth in hatred. He cheated on me just 1 week after we got married. Looking at this, it's possible that he was with a minor. This is a crime. He's really shameless. My goodness. My God. My clothes. My brain feels like it's turning into a jujube. At this time, you still think it's the blood of a virgin? It's clearly a splatter-type bloodstain. And there are also blood spots on the sleeves. This is the blood left from a murder. Yao was still chattering. "Do you think I should go to the hospital for an examination to find out which slut it was?" I couldn't hold back anymore. "Just a moment ago, you said that you might have violated a minor and committed a crime. How can you call the victim a slut the next moment?" Yao had a look of, "What should I do then?" on her face. "You is my husband. How can I blame him? If that woman was dressed properly, would you have been seduced by her? After all, it's her own fault for being slutty." Sure enough, it's impossible to reason with someone with a distorted sense of right and wrong. I lay down and ignored her. Yao reached out to push me. "Get up. I'm going to sleep. Don't disturb me." Yao huffed and puffed in anger for a while and then lay down beside me. When she fell asleep, I opened my eyes. You had already started killing people, and I couldn't wait any longer. He didn't come back tonight. I'm afraid he had a great time killing last night and stayed at the company to deal with work today. Once the project in the west of the city is over, it will be even more difficult to avoid the time when he is at home. I originally wanted to wait until I found the last key, but now it seems that I can only take a risk. If there is only one door left out of the 3, I should be able to communicate with the people inside even if the sound is a bit louder, right? If possible, I will immediately send a message to Rao and ask him to bring the police. I secretly prayed that the keys I got were for the 2 locks outside, which could bring me closer to the people inside. I avoided the servants and touched the first lock. My hands were shaking a bit. I tried the first key, but it was the wrong one. I took out the second key, and with a soft click, the lock opened. I was delighted. Pulled out the key, and left the door slightly ajar. I opened the second lock in the same way, and it was incredibly smooth. When I came to the third door, I tried to tug at the big lock, but it didn't move at all. I patted it and made a sound, and a flurry of sobbing came from inside. It sounded like there were quite a few people. It's good that the sound can come out. I immediately sent a message to Rao. "Bring people here." As soon as the message was sent, I didn't hesitate at all and turned around to leave. I can't sacrifice myself while trying to save others. I don't want to experience Yu's methods a second time. But when I turned around, I met a pair of sinister eyes. You curled his lips into a faint smile. But the smile didn't reach his eyes. Jin ran out a low sigh. I saw you again. You opened the third door. Roughly grabbed me. And threw me inside. The girls inside let out a scream and scattered away. There was a strong smell of disinfectant in the basement. And it was very choking when I suddenly inhaled it. I started coughing. But you grabbed my collar and pressed me into a water tank beside me. After choking onto mouthfuls of water, I detected the fishy smell on the water. And there was something swaying at the bottom of the water. When I was almost suffocated to death, you finally let go of his hand. Only then did I see clearly that there were 2 severed fingers at the bottom of the water. A strong feeling of vomiting rushed up, and I felt like turning my stomach inside out. There was only one thought in my mind: I'm doomed. My heart was bitter. Sure enough, being a saint leads to a bad end. I could have escaped. But why did I have to come back to save people? Now, I've gotten myself into trouble too. Although I sent a message to Rao, it would still take him some time to bring the police. How many seconds does it take to slit someone's throat? This time is enough for you to kill me 100 times. I vomited for a while until I had nothing left to vomit. You stepped on me and pushed me into the filth. Looking down at me, his voice was cold. Tell me. How did you know? I was like a dead fish. And my mind was racing. Someone told me. You showed some interest, is that so? He removed his foot and pulled me up to look him in the eye. His voice became gentle again. With that cold and clear face, he was like a seductive siren. Good girl. Tell me. Who was it? The strong desire to survive made me quickly come up with a set of lies. I can't tell you now. If I tell you, you definitely won't spare me. You was still smiling. If you don't tell me, I'll kill you right now. I also smiled. You won't do that. Aren't you curious why I know about this? Don't you want to know where I got the keys? She also told me that the password to your safe is 912. I'm also curious. How does she know you so well? Are you really at ease with such a person lurking in the dark? The smile on Yu's face finally disappeared. He threw me hard to the side. Then you stay here. I have plenty of ways to make you talk. 2 servants walked in from the door. And one of them was the servant I had met when I came to the basement. Sure enough. You had been keeping an eye on me all along. They looked a bit flustered. Young master. Someone is bringing the police here. Yu's expression changed. And he pressed the switch on the wall. A mist spread. And I lost consciousness. When I woke up, it was pitch black all around. I reached out and groped around. And I touched warm human skin. The person I touched shrank back and moved aside. Blurred voices of conversation came from not far away. She must be here. This was Rao's voice. And I could recognize it. I crawled in that direction. Mr. Zhang, right? Please don't talk nonsense. I haven't had any relationship with your sister for a long time. How could she be here with me? This was Yu's voice. There were also a few male voices I didn't recognize. Since we've already searched and haven't found anything, let's withdraw. You, take care. I'll see you out. I realized that I had been moved. I frantically knocked on the wall and shouted shrilly, Rao, I'm in here. The woman beside me reached out to stop me. It's useless. Don't waste your energy. Her eyes were numb. People outside can't hear the voices inside. We've already tried it. I didn't give up and continued to shout, knock, and beat. As a result, the sound of footsteps faded away. My heart sank little by little. Exhausted, I slumped to the ground. Just separated by a wall. I was so close. Just a little bit. And I would have succeeded. It's really despairing. I don't know how much time had passed, but the door opened from the outside. Someone was thrown in. I rubbed my sore eyes and, by the faint light at the door, I could see who it was. It was Yao. She was obviously terrified and also a bit angry. What are you doing? She looked around but couldn't see clearly. She could only raise her head and ask you pitifully, where is this? I don't want to stay here. Please don't lock me up, okay? I promise I won't bother you again when you're working next time. Yao pounced forward and hugged Yu's leg. But he kicked her away. With a snap, The light at the top of the room was turned on. The light was blinding. I squinted my eyes and observed the state of the people around me. There were a total of 8 people in the room, including you. And I was among them. I found 2 familiar faces. Both of them were in a bad state. One had a pale face and a bleeding arm, and the other was clutching his stomach. Fortunately, having fulfilled my biopsy, they were not in immediate danger of losing their lives for now. The remaining few were in a semi-comatose state, and the smell of blood in the air was very strong. Yao saw the situation around her clearly and let out a scream. She rushed towards you while screaming, You. I really was wrong. Please take me back. Where is this? And who are these women? You are almost die. Stop joking with me. Okay? I'm really scared. She was crying so hard that her face was covered with tears and snot. She leaned in and was kicked by you again. You took 2 quick steps, walked up to me, picked me up, and threw me beside Yao. Yao was startled and trembled again. Is it her? Jin? Did she tell you about me? Right? I couldn't answer. If I did, the only outcome left for Yao and me would be death. Seeing that I didn't respond, you started laughing. His laughter grew louder and louder, and he looked frenzied. He took out a fruit knife from his pocket and pointed it at Yao and me. The police just left and won't be back anytime soon. Tell me, which one of you 2 should I kill first? The knife was shining brightly. He gestured with it in front of me twice, and then it neatly stabbed into Yao's abdomen. My pupils suddenly constricted. You pulled out the knife and stabbed it in again as if venting his anger. In just a few seconds, having fulfilled my obsession, Yao had been stabbed 3 or 4 times. You stood up, and there was still Yao's blood on his face. He gestured with the bloody knife among me and the remaining people. He was a bit staggering. The pleasure brought by his extreme venting had clouded his mind. He smiled and asked, Who should I kill next? Since the police already suspect me, I should deal with you all quickly. After a round of scanning, the tip of the bloody knife pointed at me. At the moment of life and death, I grabbed the stabbing knife with my bare hands. Han. Help me. Quickly. The woman whose name I called was stunned for a moment. After coming to her senses, she gritted her teeth and pounced forward. Yu was extremely angry and tried to pull the knife back, with the mentality of going down together. I held on tightly. The sharp knife almost cut through my palm. Fortunately, I was not very sensitive to pain. Yu also noticed this, and a gleam of joy appeared in his eyes. I knew it. Jin. Your pain perception is indeed not sensitive. It's worth it that I've been keeping an eye on you for so long. What should I do? I like you so much that I'm even a bit reluctant to kill you. What a pity. You exerted some strength and pressed me under him. He pulled out the knife and aimed it at my neck. I closed my eyes, feeling somewhat unwilling. In the next instant, the door was kicked open from the outside. The knife stabbing towards my throat was also blocked. I opened my eyes and saw Rao. He forcefully pushed you off me, and the police who rushed in quickly pinned you down. You looked at all these changes in disbelief and murmured, How could this be? I was helped up by Rao. I tore off the locator in my clothes and threw it in front of you. You're as arrogant as ever. He believed that as a woman, I didn't have much ability to resist. He also believed that the basement he built was hidden and safe enough, so he didn't even search me. The medical staff put me on a stretcher. Rao followed with a guilty look. His signal jammer is quite powerful. If only my skills were better and I could have come here faster. I had lost a lot of blood and didn't have the strength to speak. I also felt a bit cold. I could only blink at him as a form of comfort. A city salt a heinous case, which caused a great sensation for a while. Yu's image as a gentle and noble young master was completely shattered. The police searched his house and found 5 corpses. According to the forensic identification, all 5 of them had suffered inhumane torture before their deaths. In addition, 7 victims were rescued. 4 of them were seriously injured and 3 were slightly injured. The media once wanted to interview me, but Rao used the excuse that I was in a coma due to excessive blood loss to turn them away. When the police came to take a statement, I recited the fabricated story I had prepared word for word to them. How I discovered Yu's abnormalities, how I collected evidence, and so on. Han and I were in the same hospital room. After the police left after taking the statement, she asked, "How did you know my name? We clearly haven't met before." I smiled and said, "We have met. You were in my dream." In my dream. She died in the second year after I married you while trying to save me. It was a snowy day. Bitterly cold. Han was silent for a long time. In the end, she didn't ask anything and just said sincerely, "Thank you. When you caught me and locked me in the basement. I even scolded myself for being a saint, and, due to the human instinct of seeking benefits and avoiding harm, I even felt a trace of regret. But at this moment, seeing Han standing in front of me alive and thanking me, is it worth sacrificing one's life for others? It is worth it. Because there were also people who had sacrificed their lives for me. The bond between people was thus formed. Kindness and bravery are the most magnificent civilizations in human society." 3 days later, Rao pushed open the door of the hospital room and told me that you would be executed in a month. He said that before he dies, he wants to see you one more time. Rao didn't want me to go, but after thinking about it, I agreed. After my wound had healed a bit, I went to see you. He was wearing prison clothes. When he saw me, his eyes were cold and sinister. If there wasn't anyone restraining him, he would pounce on me and tear me apart in the next instant. He stared at me and said in a deep voice, "What on earth?" I didn't let him finish. Through the visiting glass, having fulfilled fiancé, I smiled brightly at him. You, justice will never be absent. I've crossed time and space just to catch you. It's me. I've been watching you all along.